Welcome to the Explainer. Look, if you're trying to figure out how American politics just quietly, literally changed shape overnight, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're bypassing all the noisy headlines. We're going to neutrally map out a completely unprecedented political maneuver. We are going to look at how a sleepy, under-the-radar state-level primary in Indiana somehow morphed into a massive proxy war for control of the entire United States Congress. Okay, let's dive right into this. And we really need to start with the sheer scale of what just happened. $12 million. Think about that for a second. That is the amount of money dropped on a random Tuesday in May in a primary election in Indiana that, honestly, almost nobody outside of hardcore political circles was even paying attention to. To really wrap your head around what a massive financial anomaly this is, just look at this comparison. According to the ad tracking firm Ad Impact, if you take the total advertising spend across every single Indiana state Senate race for the entire 2024 election cycle combined, it was less than $500,000. But for this one specific Tuesday night, across just 7 races, outside groups poured in $12 million. I mean, that is 24 times the normal volume of money flooding into local races that historically get completely ignored. So, why the sudden gold rush? Well, it all comes down to 7 state senators and 7 primary challengers endorsed by Donald Trump. The National Party apparatus zeroed in on 7 Republican incumbents. We're talking about folks like Travis Holdman, who has been a fixture in the Indiana Senate for 17 years, literally the 3rd most powerful Republican in that chamber. Now, these aren't big national names. Most Hoosiers couldn't even pick them out of a lineup. But massive, massive resources were put on the table to take them out. And it was all for one simple reason. Back in December, they voted no. Let's move to the timeline and see exactly how this builds. Because it actually started back in October 2025, when Texas set a totally new precedent by redrawing their congressional maps mid-cycle, just to add Republican seats. That sparked a domino effect. By November, Indiana Governor Mike Braun called a special legislative session to do the exact same thing, push through new map to flip 2 congressional seats from Democrat to Republican. But then, in December, the Indiana Senate absolutely stunned the political world. 21 Republicans actually broke ranks, joined the Democrats, and totally rejected the nationally backed map in a 31-19 bipartisan defeat. That 31-19 vote wasn't just random. It was rooted in a very specific philosophy. Just listen to this quote from Senator Travis Holdman. "The message from my district has been clear. They do not support mid-cycle redistricting, and therefore I cannot support it." You see, institutional conservatives in the Indiana Senate held an independent line. They actually listened to their local constituents who basically said they didn't want the unwritten rules of districting changed right in the middle of the decade just for partisan gain. But by holding that constituent-first line, those state senators instantly became the targets of a $12 million national primary campaign. To understand what they were actually voting on, we really have to look at the core mechanic here: mid-cycle redistricting. Now, the tradition in America, and it's a strong one, is that we redraw congressional maps once a decade right after the census. But here's the catch. It's just a tradition. It's not a law. Thanks to the Supreme Court's 2019 ruling in Rucho v. Common Cause, federal courts actually cannot overturn maps drawn for purely partisan political reasons. So, legally speaking, if a state legislature wants to redraw maps in year 3 or year 5 of a decade just to maximize their party's advantage, they absolutely can. So the absolutely crucial point here is the number 5. Right now, the United States House of Representatives sits at a razor-thin margin of exactly 5 seats. Those 5 seats literally dictate whether a national legislative agenda sails right through the House or hits a brick wall completely. You don't need a massive nationwide sweep to secure your agenda anymore. You just need to find 5 seats. And that brings us straight back to the math of that Indiana map they rejected in December. Let's look at the numbers objectively. Under the current map, Indiana sends 7 Republicans and 2 Democrats to the U.S. House. The proposed map? It would change that to 9 Republicans and 0 Democrats. It literally manufactures 2 reliable House seats out of thin air. You don't have to win a single competitive general election swing district. You just change the boundaries. So how exactly do you just erase 2 seats? Well, it's through a map-making tactic called cracking. The proposed map targeted 2 Democrats, including Carson over in the Indianapolis-based 7th District. The plan was basically to split Indianapolis 4 ways, taking Carson's safe Democratic district and cracking it apart, diluting those urban voters by absorbing them into sprawling, rural Republican territory. Because the Indiana Senate blocked that cracking maneuver, outside groups stepped in and launched what we can call the privatization playbook. It's a very precise, mechanical process. Step 1. Spend massive money to fund primary challengers against the dissenting senators. Step 2, use those newly elected loyalists to oust the dissenting Senate leadership when the next term starts. Step 3, call a new special session, pass that exact same map, and permanently alter the U.S. House for the rest of the decade. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly who is funding that playbook. Spoiler alert, it is not local grassroots money. You've got Hoosier Leadership for America dropping around $5 million. You've got America Leadership PAC, which is run by top national advisors, dropping another $3 million. These dark money groups have realized a fundamental truth about modern politics. Buying influence in a state legislature is drastically cheaper and way more reliable than fighting a brutal, highly competitive national congressional race. Seriously, just consider the strategic efficiency on display here. Why spend hundreds of millions of dollars desperately trying to change public opinion in a divided national swing district in November when you can just drop $12 million in May to swap out the 7 local people who write the rules? By changing the map makers in a super low turnout state primary, you effectively predetermine the outcome in November. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing how this Indiana experiment isn't just a one-off. It is actually the evolution of a 30-year macro trend. Look at how the whole strategy is escalated. In 2018, the target was open seats, and the goal was just moving primary votes to loyalists. By 2022, they were targeting incumbents who voted for impeachment, basically purging ideological disloyalty from Congress. But now, in 2026, the target is local state senators. The goal isn't just ideological purity anymore. It's total structural domination. The map is the payload, and those state senators are just the delivery mechanism. And hey, if you're sitting there wondering, does this aggressive primary playbook actually work? Just look at the data from 2022. When targeted campaigns went after the 10 House Republicans who voted for impeachment, 8 of them were either defeated in their primaries or forced to retire. We're talking about major figures like Liz Cheney and Peter Meyer. That is an 80% purge rate against sitting members of Congress. That exact same highly effective model is what was just scaled down and dropped right onto the Indiana state legislature. The collateral damage, the unexpected losers of the $12 million message. Let's rapidly fire through the political fallout here, because it hits way beyond just the ballot box. You've got Travis Holdman ousted after 17 years over a single vote. Senate President Roderick Bray, his leadership is severely weakened. Congressman Carson now has his Indianapolis district functionally imperiled for 2028. Governor Mike Braun ends up humiliated when his own legislature killed his map. And honestly, the very concept of institutional conservatism took a hit, basically penalized for daring to maintain an independent state-level stance against big national demands. But it is absolutely vital to note that this kind of structural manipulation is not isolated to one side of the aisle. The arms race is officially on. Democratic trifecta states like California and Virginia are already abandoning their own unwritten norms to pass counter-gerrymandering amendments. Mid-cycle redistricting used to be this fringe, kind of embarrassing tactic, right? Well, not anymore. It is rapidly becoming the brand new national normal for both parties. So, what should you really take away from this explainer? It's this. True control of the United States Congress completely bypasses the November elections. The real lever of power has always been the state legislature. But for decades, it was just a quiet, technical curiosity. Today, that lever has a very public price tag. $12 million buys you the map makers, and the map makers buy you the United States House of Representatives. Which leaves us with one final, deeply provocative thought. In a system where your local primaries are suddenly being funded by massive, undisclosed national donors just to satisfy a national political demand, who really draws your map? Do your local representatives answer to you and your community, or do they answer to a $12 million playbook? It's a massive question that goes way, way beyond Indiana, and it's one we are all going to have to grapple with moving forward. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helped you see the underlying structure of our political map just a bit more clearly.